rangatira mā. Hei mihi tine ki a koutou nā tauira. Tēnei taku mihi atu ki a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. It is a real honour and pleasure to be here at this school. I used to compete against St Joseph's in the O'Shea Shield, if you were to beat me at drama, but one puts those things to one side and says thank you very much for this invitation, which means a lot to me. I want to begin by acknowledging those who today are saying goodbye to their college. All the memories of your years here are going to stay with you forever, and they're going to come back in random moments in the years to come. That's certainly been my experience since I left St Pat's Town in 1974, and the memories have come back very suddenly in the form of Father Hamilton, who's sitting in front of me. He taught me geography, and he hasn't aged a day since he taught me. I'm very lucky to be a product of the Catholic education system. I went to a primary school called St Benedict's in Wellington. The head mistress was a fiery Irish nun called Mother Baptist, who was always fighting with the parish priest. She became a very good friend of James K. Baxter, who was a wonderful poet, as we know, but wasn't quite so good when it came to delivering the mail around Kandala. And so Mother Baptist had to send out the Standard 6 boys to help James Kay deliver the mail. But I have to tell you that I'm forever grateful to the Church for the education I received, and I really do acknowledge Father Hamilton here today. The memory of things past makes me think of 50 years ago today, almost, I have to tell you, to the very hour, when I returned home from playing cricket with some friends as a 6-year-old. I went into the kitchen to find my mother crying. I asked her what was wrong, and she said that JFK had been murdered in Dallas. A few days later, the nuns at St Benedict's in Kandala organised a television, the first time I'd actually seen television, so that we could watch the Requiem Mass in Washington. Memories which have stayed with me for the last 50 years, and are still very strong, and I was still reflecting on those very events this morning. 2013 has also been full of events in my life, many of which are going to stay with me forever. At the beginning of the year, visiting what is probably the most horrifying place on earth, Auschwitz-Birkenau, a testament of what happens when you drive God out of your lives. Man's capacity for evil knows no bounds. Or visiting the World War I burial sites in France and northern Belgium, again a testament to the folly of soldiers and politicians. I don't know whether the year 13 students learnt the war poetry that I learnt when I was in my last year at St Pat's, but Wilfred Owen's poems deserve to be read again and again and again, because they do tell of the horrors of that shocking conflict. I was very fortunate also, because Bill English couldn't go, to the inauguration of our new Pope and briefly meet him, the great hope of our sometimes troubled church. Whether he took the name Francis in honour of Francis Xavier, the founder of the Jesuits, or Francis of Assisi doesn't really matter, because Francis Xavier was strong and determined and built up a great religious congregation. Francis of Assisi, a very gentle and kind man. And our hopes are placed in the hands of this wonderful Argentinian. But of all the memories, one's going to stay with me forever, and with the greatest of respect to His Holiness, it's not meeting him. Because on 5 June 2013, we signed, that is the Crown signed, a deed of settlement with Ngāi Tūhoi. Working with that great iwi to undo the burdens of the past has to be the highlight of my professional life. This is an iwi that has been treated badly for many years. And if you want to know something of why things go wrong in our country, read the history of Ngāi Tūhoi, and I'm sure many of you know it only too well. That in 1895, Seddon crossed Lake Waikaremoana, not far from here, to meet with Tūhoi and to establish the Te Urewera Native District Reserve Act, which was enshrined in legislation in 1896, but by 1921 that had been repealed and Tūhoi were locked out of their land for generations thereafter. It was a wrong that needed to be addressed, and I always remember the last lunch I had with that great son of Hawke's Bay, Rodney Garland, whom some of you will know, and he said to me, the Tūhoi settlement has to proceed. So that's something from this year that I will never forget. And you too will have your own litany of matters that you will remember for years to come, as I said, especially those who are leaving this great college. And so for you, it's time to move on. Some of you to new classes, some of you to a gap year, others to university, the workplace, or the polytech. For those leaving, let me offer you my few words of wisdom. The secular world will offer instant answers to the challenges you face. Much of what is offered is worthless. You cannot lock yourselves away from this world because that's the world we all live in. But if you live your lives according to what you have been taught at this college, you can't go wrong. As I said 50 years ago today, a great son of America was murdered. And I was wondering how to finish this brief speech to you today, and I was taken back to something that he said to his friends in Massachusetts just a few weeks before he became President of the United States. And this is what he said, and it's mainly applicable to politicians and those in public life, but I actually think he sets out a number of principles that apply to all of us. And he says this: of those to whom much is given, much is required. And when at some future date the High Court of History sits in judgment on each of us, recording whether in our lives we fulfilled our responsibilities, our success or failure in whatever we do will be measured by the answers to 4 questions. First, were we truly men and women of courage, with the courage to stand up to one's enemies and the courage to stand up when necessary to one's associates, the courage to resist public pressure as well as private greed. Secondly, I can still see it. Secondly, were we truly men and women of judgment, with perceptive judgment of the future as well as of the past, of our own mistakes as well as the mistakes of others, with enough wisdom to know what we did not know and enough candour to admit it. Third, were we truly men and women of integrity, who never ran out on either the principles in which we believed or the people who believed in us. People whom neither financial gain nor ambition could ever divert from the fulfilment of our sacred trust. And finally, were we truly men and women of dedication, with an honour mortgaged to no single individual or group, compromised by no private obligation or aim, but devoted solely to serving the public good and the national interest. Courage, judgment, integrity, dedication. They were the questions that John Kennedy asked the people he was going to serve with when he became President of the United States. But they're the qualities which test all of us through our lives, and they're the qualities which I'm sure this great school has trained you up in so that you can face the future, whatever it may hold. So thank you very much once again for the invitation, and all the very best for the future.
Minister,